X-ray, Joe, and Wiley.
LNTS Net nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC. FC.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5's PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX, if you will do the check-in honors, please.
Ms. Billy, and thank you for doing the net this evening and doing the NCS responsibility. I'm back. I want to thank everybody who checked in last week. 30 minutes ago. 50 check-ins. That was fantastic. This net also gets a lot of check-ins. So let's go ahead and start with low-power short-time check-ins. If you are one of those low-power short-time, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power short-time.
November 5, Whiskey, Oscar, India, William, and Alan, short time.
Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power. Way to go on that net, Tom.
KF5, JHA, trying to do this on low power tonight.
Low power, anyone else? Low power short time, come now.
This is KF5, JHA. Chaz, I'm trying this on low power tonight. Mesquite.
Yeah, I got, there was a double, but Chaz won on low power, KF5JHA in Mesquite, low power. There was one other station. Go ahead.
This is N5BB checking in. I just want to tell you that you guys were doubling earlier, N5BB.
Okie dokie. I've got those checked in. Anyone else low power short time? Come now. Hey, as is tradition, anybody who is checked in low power short time, do you have anything for the net now? Because you could fade into the distance. Come with your call. Okay, here we go. Check-ins. Geez, the last net was overwhelming, but I got through it. We'll do it again. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. General check-ins. Come now.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip from Crandall. Hey, Gus.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu India, X-Ray Joe, and Wale High Power.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia in Dallas.
Kilo India 5, Juliet Charlie Mike, Thomas, and Euless. Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Foxtrot Romeo, Jacob, Dallas, Texas.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, the Whiskey, J in there, whatever. This is Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richards. Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo, Chuck Richardson. Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
W4 Victor Zulu Echo Bob in Arlington.
Right, that's a good place to pause. Let's go ahead and get them. I've got K5KOB, Philip and Crandall. Welcome back. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto. K5KTX, Miss Kelly and Quinlan. KG5ZIX, Joe and Wiley. KG5OMR, Marcia and KI5JCM, Thomas and Euless. KG5UFR, Jacob and Dallas. KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford. AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. 85SE is neighbor Chuck in Richardson. KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill in Farmers Branch. W4 Victor Zulu Echo, that's Bob in Arlington. Additional check-ins come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
This is Kilo 5 Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
Right, I'll take those. I got KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima James in North Carrollton. K5ANP, that's Allen in Dallas. I will now go over to Echolink. Echolink, you're on. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting. Echolink only.
Net Control, Whiskey, 0, Mike, Bravo, Charlie, Shane, Blue Springs, Missouri. Hello, Texas.
Blue Springs. We're missing someone, but we'll find her again next week, maybe. Anyone else over on Echolink? Please come now. All right, don't forget, bring Bethany back next week. Let's go to back over here. Any mode, geez. I think after the previous net, I'm kind of like nuts. But anyone else would like to check in, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
sorry about that. When someone has a key open, I can't transmit, so I didn't hear anything at all what was going on RF. Tom, I apologize. So were you finished? And if so, did you have a current count for me? If you would just get back to me. KE5ICX, this is KF5PDS.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'll keep a closer eye over on Echolink. We have 23 check-ins so far, and it's back to you for announcements. KE5ICX.
Thank you so much, Tom. All right, so let's go ahead with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement, please come now with your call sign.
Bravo, Bravo.
N5BB, Bill, good evening. Go ahead with your announcement.
To remind everybody that Winter Field Day is next weekend, a week from today and tomorrow. And excuse me. If you have any interest, make sure that you get ready for Winter Field Day. You can do a quick web search to find the rules for Winter Field Day. And then make sure you decide on which group you're going to participate with. This is all virtual, so you can do it from your house, but you can make your points count for a club, such as Dallas Amateur Radio Club. So make sure you research that before next Saturday. Don't wait till the last minute. The weather is going to be bad, so you probably don't want to be working on antennas here tomorrow. There's some possible thunderstorms coming through, and there's a dense fog advisory until noon tomorrow. So be careful out there in preparing for Winter Field Day. N5BB, thank you.
Great, thank you, Bill. Is there any other announcements? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any other announcements, so I'll go ahead with a few of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com, and this net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 on Tuesdays. Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that Tuesday night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC have hosted nets on Monday nights. The first Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's Net. If you have a recipe that you'd like to share, or a question about food, or an anecdote, or just want to sit back and collect some recipes, join us for Ham Fixin's Net. The second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. For the third Monday, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's Net. And on fourth Mondays is GeekNet, sharing things like news of the weird, geeky movies, brain teasers, you name it. If it's geeky, we'll geek out on GeekNet. And fifth Monday is a surprise net. If we told you what it is, it wouldn't be a surprise. On-air participation is encouraged. On Tuesdays, AMSAT East, 8 p.m., questions and answers, info, and news for amateur satellites. On Fridays, CERT City, simulation at 7:30 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa KI5GRH is usually net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday at CERT City. All are welcome. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. and, of course, 9 p.m. Skynet. First and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. Daily, we have the Lunch Bunch at 12 noon. Monday through Friday, there's always a survey question. Eat lunch with us. And the ARRLNet National Traffic System Training Net is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And don't forget, after Skynet at 10:30 p.m., we have the Afterglow Movie Net. If we have any new listeners, here's how the Afterglow movie works. On the Saturday night when we do our movie discussion, at the end of the net, we pick a movie to watch for the coming week. We watch that movie, and then we discuss it on the next Afterglow Movie Net at 10:30 following Skynet. At this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us tonight's Afterglow info.
Miss Billy, this is KE5ICX. Here we go. Roddenberry peered at the writer, sizing him up. Then he spoke. Bixby, he bellowed, I bought into your pirate universe, Klingon battles, immortal Leonardo da Vinci, and intergalactic alien hijackings. But this one about a college professor who thinks he's lived for 14,000 years is a bridge too far. Give me a story with a Kirk love interest, a ripped shirt, a speech about freedom in space in simple language that Shatner can pronounce, and I need it this afternoon. Roddenberry downed his 12th scotch and soda that morning, placed his head on the desk, and fell asleep. Bixby stared at the hulking sleeping man, remembering happier days with Rod Serling. He had to do something with the script. Join us for The Man from Earth from 2007 at 10:30 p.m. It's pretty cool. Bixby's a good guy. You remember him. He did that episode of Twilight Zone. That's it, Twilight Zone. And the one where they wish everybody into the cornfield. It's that guy. Back to net control, KE5ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. And as I said, you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. All right, this is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. If we have someone on frequency who'd like to give us information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, please come now with your call sign.
F5JHA.
KF5JHA. Chaz, good evening. What information can you give us about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas?
Well, good evening, everyone. The last meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas was last night at 7:30 with Stephen Tompkins talking about binoculars. Did a detailed coverage of binoculars. He actually lives in England, so he was up at about 2 o'clock in the morning doing a presentation. Actually, 2:30 in the morning is when he started his presentation until about 3:30, so that was kind of interesting. But he had clear skies. He was going to go out and use some binoculars after his talk. The next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be held on Friday, February the 26th at 7:30. I didn't quite catch the name, but they're going to be talking about that recent brightening of Beetlejuice, as some people call it, that we recently had. Club members will receive an email link to the meetings about a week or so in advance. It's a Zoom meeting. And I hope sometime we'll resume having face-to-face meetings, and then the task will hopefully resume having public observing sessions too. Check their website, texasastro.org, for updated information and details. This is KF5 JHA, back to our net control. Billy.
Great. Thank you very much, Chaz. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Bill, N5 Bravo Bravo, if you'll give us that information, please.
Thank you again, Billy. This is N5BB. I am the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. If anybody has any interest in National Space Society, wants to join our group, or wants to listen in to one of our virtual meetings, please send me an email. You can send it to space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net, or N5BB@ARRL.net. That's November 5 Bravo Bravo @ARRL.net. Either email address works. Our next meeting, virtual meeting, due to COVID, is going to be the second Sunday of February. That's February the 14th. This is a little over 3 weeks from now, and it'll be at 4 p.m. via WebEx. And the topic has not yet been published for that particular meeting. Unfortunately, we can't do any local events because of the COVID restrictions and everything. And National Space Society is having seminars and webinars on different topics most weeks. Some of these are for members, some are for anybody. But other than that, unfortunately, in our meetings, our monthly meetings, we don't have any other activities going on. Sure hope this COVID will go away so we can get back to doing things in person. That's all I got. I'm in 5BB.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. Also want to throw out some information for folks. The National Space Society of North Texas has a website, nssofnt.org, and the National Space Society of North Texas also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access. You'll receive meeting reminders and club activities. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. So for my topic, I've chosen a question: where does interstellar space begin? You know, we talk about interstellar space, but exactly what is it and where does it start? So this information comes from spaceplace.nasa.gov. The NASA Science Space Place is where you can explore Earth and space. So at first glance, the answer seems simple. Inter means between, and stellar refers to stars. So easy, you think. Interstellar space is the part of space that exists between stars. Well, but wouldn't that pretty much mean that all of space is interstellar space? For interstellar space to be something different, then there must be some defined boundary between the space near a star and the space in between stars. But what is that boundary? Scientists define the beginning of interstellar space as the place where the sun's constant flow of material and magnetic field stop affecting its surroundings. This place is called the heliopause. It marks the end of a region created by our sun that is called the heliosphere. The sun creates this heliosphere by sending a constant flow of particles and a magnetic field out into space over 670,000 miles per hour. This stream is called the solar wind. Like Earth wind, the wind pushes against the stuff around it. What it pushes against are particles from other stars, pretty much anything that doesn't come from our own solar system. When it comes to the sun, it's all about detecting the concentration and temperature of the particles around you. Inside the heliosphere, the star particles are hot but less concentrated. Outside of the bubble, they are very much colder but more concentrated. Once you arrive in interstellar space, there would be an increase of cold particles around you. There would also be a magnetic field that does not originate from our sun. Welcome to interstellar space. Some other interesting facts is, did you know we've actually sent something into interstellar space? In the summer of 2012, a NASA spacecraft named Voyager 1 became the first human-made object to enter interstellar space. Voyager 1 was launched in 1977. By 1989, it had visited Jupiter and Saturn and crossed the orbits, but did not visit Uranus and Neptune. As of 2015, it's over 12,161,300,000 miles away from Earth. In 300 years, it will reach the beginning of the Oort cloud. The Oort cloud is a collection of icy material where many comets come from. This material is likely the furthest stuff still orbiting around our sun. In 30,000 years, it will reach the end of the Oort cloud. The Oort cloud is really huge. 40,000 years from now, it will be closer to another star than to our own sun. So from here, there are several other links where you can learn about things like the Oort cloud, and you can learn about Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. So there's some information about where interstellar space begins. This is KF5PDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is Was Up. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA, if you'll let us know Was Up.
Good morning, everyone. This is KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up. Okay, slide number 2, please, Slide Master. On January the 20th, this was just a few days ago, the moon was at its first quarter phase. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. The moon will be full on January 28th. The moon will be at its third quarter phase on February the 4th, and the moon will be new on February the 11th. Master, we're on slide number 3. On February the 6th, the planets Saturn and Venus are in conjunction in the early morning sky. In fact, they're only going to be about a half a degree apart from each other. Not as close as the recent conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, but they're going to be pretty close together. Now, this is going to be in strong twilight. It's going to be around 7 a.m. when they're high enough to look in the eastern sky so you can find them. Of course, Venus is going to be the brighter of the planets, and Saturn will be just above Venus. Later, this is slide number 4. On February the 10th, the planets Jupiter and Venus are in conjunction in the early morning eastern sky. Venus is the brighter, and Jupiter is just to the lower left of Venus. Now, not too far away from the pair, to the upper right, you can find Saturn. And just to the left of Venus and Jupiter, you could find the planet Mercury. So 4 planets at once would be a great sight. But again, this is going to be in strong twilight. You'll probably see Venus and Jupiter, but you might have a difficult time seeing Mercury and Saturn because they're not as bright. The crescent moon is also below Saturn. so that might be a helpful guide to finding Saturn anyway. February 18th is the date when you can find the Moon and Mars in conjunction about halfway up in the western evening sky around 10 or 11 p.m. And slide number 6, on February the 26th, low in the early morning southeastern sky, you can find Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury. Mercury will be in between Saturn and Jupiter. If you look at it the day before, the day after, Mercury won't be quite in between. So February 26th would be a good time to go take a little look at the 3 planets all in a conjunction together. This is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting, the next one will be on February the 26th at 7:30. It's a virtual one on Zoom. Details about the next meeting will appear sometime soon on the website texasastro.org. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information I've just given? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
E5ICX.
Mr. Slide Master, better known as Tom, what's your question?
You mentioned twilight and, twilight, morning, evening, dawn, that sort of thing. I guess but there have been times I've been on the Brookhaven campus where you said you pull out your binoculars and then you start saying, I can see a planet if I have my binoculars in daylight. Can you explain that to me? Because I always think you're kind of crazy when you say that, and then you say, there it is, and you point, and everybody kind of runs away. Can you explain that, KE5IC?
Very good question. In fact, you don't need binoculars to find one of the planets in the daytime, just your 2 eyes. There are times when Venus is bright enough that you just need your 2 eyeballs to find Venus in the daytime sky when the sun is above the horizon. We actually had that occur a few years ago. You could easily see the moon occult, or in other words, block the planet Venus, and you could watch it naked eye. You'd see the moon cover up Venus, and then about 45 minutes or so later, it uncovered Venus. It was really a spectacular thing to see with your naked eyes. So anyway, Venus is bright enough you don't even need binoculars to see in the daytime sky. During some times, when it's above -4, I should say brighter than -4 magnitude, that's an easy thing to do. And Venus does that about every 9 months or so for about a month and a half. It's bright enough you can see in the daytime sky easily. Now, other planets you can actually see with binoculars or a telescope. Jupiter is an easy one. It depends on about where Mars is in its orbit. If it's bright enough, it's easier to find. Saturn is more difficult because it's fainter than the other ones. Mercury, it's so close to the sun, it's kind of difficult to see no matter what. But did that answer your question, KF5JHA?
Yes, thank you for the answer, and that explains what seems like erratic behavior too. But no, I didn't know that the other planets could be seen during the daylight sky, so that's pretty cool. Thank you so much from KE5ICX.
Why, thank you. The other planets can be seen, but you'll need binoculars or a telescope to see those. I've done a trick before when I go to an observing session, and I will pull out a planet before anyone else because I've looked a night or two before. I know where it is, when it is, and I can usually find it in binoculars before anybody else at the observing session. It's just something I like to do. Anyway, thanks for your question. Okay, so as the moon was waning during the beginning part of January, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. Yeah, we need that. Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA. Chaz, and I want to give it back to our net control, Billy, KF5 PDS.
Great, thanks very much, Chaz. This is KF5 PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. I don't see an emphasis on which name, so Tom, can you please give me the update on who is doing space exploration and space history so I can call upon the correct person?
Stereo V5OZL, it is my turn. Alrighty, space exploration news. There is a moon rock at the White House in the Oval Office. It's lunar sample 76015,143. It was collected by the Apollo 17 crew in 1972. It's a 0.7 pound or 333 gram slice of a larger rock that was chipped off a boulder. It is now on display in the Oval Office in the White House. A descriptive plaque on the base of the White House moon rock display explains that the 3.9 billion-year-old sample was chipped from a large boulder at the base of the North Massif in the Taurus-Littrow Valley by Apollo 17 astronauts Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt. The last, to date, humans to walk on the moon. Hopefully, soon. The only other moon rock to be on long-term display at the White House commemorated the 30th anniversary of the first moon landing in 1999. Apollo 11 crewmates Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins visited the Oval Office when NASA loaned the White House a moon rock from the mission, lunar sample 10057,30. The rock remained on display in the room until January 2001. At least one other moon rock has visited the White House, although it was only on loan from NASA for a day. It was displayed in the Roosevelt Room outside of the Oval Office. One of only 10 touchstones, exposed pieces of sample 70215 mounted so the public can touch a piece of the moon. The Apollo 17 rock was presented on December 11th, 2017 for the signing. Oh, that's not right. I guess it is. The signing of Space Policy Directive 1, which instructed NASA to send astronauts back to the moon and then on to Mars, setting the foundation for the space agency's current Artemis program. Of new sun stamps, the United States Postal Service has announced Sun Science, a set of 10 different stamps that will celebrate the ongoing study of the sun using digital images from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, SDO. The Forever Domination stamps will be released later this year. Next, scientists find black holes could reach stupendously large sizes. A recent study suggests the possible existence of stupendously large black holes or slabs, even larger than the supermassive black holes already observed in the centers of galaxies. The research, led by Queen Mary Emeritus Professor Bernard Carr in the School of Physics and Astronomy, together with F. Kuhnel in Munich and L. Vicinelli, friends, I guess that's, I don't know, investigated how these slabs can form and potential limits to their size. While there is evidence of the existence of supermassive black holes, SMBHs in galactic nuclei with masses from 1 million to 10 billion times that of the Sun, previous studies have suggested an upper limit to their size due to our current view on how such black holes form and grow. The existence of slabs even larger than this could provide researchers with a powerful tool for cosmological tests and improve our understanding of the early universe. We have a bunch of astronaut birthdays this week. We have Buzz Aldrin, January 20th, 1930. He flew on Gemini 12 and Apollo 11. Jerry L. Ross, January 20th, 1948. He did 7 shuttle missions. Jeffrey Williams, January 18th, 1958. He did 1 shuttle and 3 Soyuz missions. Robert D. Cabana, January 23rd, 1943. He did 4 shuttle missions. William R. Pope, January 23rd, 1930. He did 4 Skylab missions. And then it's pronounced K-J-E-L-L, Dell or Cadell. Lindgren, January 23rd, 1973. He did a Soyuz mission and USCV-4. Thomas David Jones, January 22nd, 1955, did 4 shuttle missions. Joseph R. Tanner, January 21st, 1950, 4 shuttle missions. And Frank D. Fisher, January 23rd, 1974, he did a Soyuz mission. This week in space history, the Saturn I S1 stage buildup, January 18th, 1961. This week in 61, NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center engineers readied the first stage of the Saturn I rocket for checkout in Building 4705. The Saturn I S1 stage employed 8 clustered H-1 engines capable of producing 1.5 million pounds of thrust. Originally developed under the U.S. Army Ballistic Missile Agency, 10 Saturn I rockets were flown prior to being replaced by the Saturn Ib. Here in this picture, the S1 stages for the Saturn I SA-1 right and SA-2 left are assembled in Building 4705. Today, Marshall is playing a vital role in the Artemis program by developing the SLS, the backbone of NASA's exploration plans, and the only rocket capable of sending humans to the Moon and Mars. January 19th, 2006 was the launch of New Horizons. 1989, robotic spacecraft had visited all the known planets from Mercury to Neptune. That left only Pluto, then considered the 9th planet in the solar system, unexplored. NASA approved the New Horizons mission in 2001 to conduct the first flyby of the small distant planet and its large moon Charon and explore the Kuiper Belt of small icy objects that lay beyond. The spacecraft launched a little over 5 years later on January 19th, 2006. Although already the fastest spacecraft to leave Earth, New Horizons also required a gravity assist from Jupiter to reduce its total flight time to Pluto from 14 years to under 10. On July 10th, 2015, the spacecraft zoomed through the Pluto system, taking hundreds of photographs and returning scientific information about the little-known planet, its atmosphere, and its moons. And the U.S. Postal Service released a new stamp of Pluto and New Horizons in 2016 to commemorate the New Horizons encounter. Astronaut Harrison Schmitt discovered that he was allergic to moon dust. I wonder if future moon explorers will have to be tested for moon dust allergies prior to going. He was the only one, so if 1 in 12 humans is allergic to it, that's a pretty high percentage. So I got WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. This is KF5 PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So at this time, I'll return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA, if you'll give us some information about this week's constellation.
Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at usually one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Taurus, the Bull. Mr. Slide Master, I'm working on slide number 10. Taurus is the 17th largest constellation in the sky, occupying an area of 797 square degrees. Its name means bull in Latin. Isn't that funny? The constellation is symbolized by the bull's head, and it's not an entire bull, so there's not a lot of bull up there in the sky. It's only half of a bull, the front end. It is one of the oldest constellations. Its history dates back to the Bronze Age, in fact. Taurus is one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac, first cataloged by the Greek astronomer Ptolemy. We've talked about him before in the 2nd century. In Greek mythology, the constellation is associated with Zeus, who transformed himself into a bull to get close to Europa, that sounds familiar, in order to abduct her. Number 11, please. Aldebaran, Alpha Tauri, is the brightest star in Taurus and long considered to be the bull's eye. Get it? Bullseye? Well, there you go. The name Aldebaran is derived from the Arabic word which means the follower, supposedly from the fact that the star follows the Pleiades across the sky. Aldebaran is an orange giant star of spectral type K5 with a diameter 44 times that of our sun. It is about 65 light years in distance and is 150 times more luminous than our sun. If that were placed in our solar system instead of our sun at the center, I think we'd have to have a lot higher sunscreen, don't you think? Aldebaran is one of the brightest stars other than the sun, which can't, but it is the brightest star other than our sun that can be occulted by the moon. We were talking about Venus being covered up by the moon during the day a few years ago. Well, that's called an occultation. And so such occultations have been observed of Aldebaran since ancient times. According to Burnham's Celestial Handbook, Edmund Halley studied the records of occultations of Aldebaran that was observed in Athens in March of 509 AD. More than 1,000 years after it took place, Halley concluded that the event could not have occurred unless the position of Aldebaran had been several minutes of arc further north at the time. From a comparison of his positions with those reported in ancient records, Halley found out that Sirius, Arcturus, and Aldebaran had measurable changes in their positions since ancient times. In 1718, Halley announced the discovery of what we now call proper motion. Number 12, please, Mr. Slide Master. The Pleiades star cluster, also known as M45. It was the 45th item on Charles Messier's list of fuzzy things in the sky. It's also known as the Seven Sisters. The Seven Sisters name comes from a mythological account of the 7 daughters of Atlas who were placed in the heavens to help them overcome their grief over the fate of their father who had to support the world on his shoulders. Indeed, the brightest stars in the cluster are named after the seven sisters and their father Atlas and their mother. The Pleiades is one of the special class of objects that looks better in binoculars than in most telescopes. Of course, the Pleiades are easily visible with no optical aid at all, just with your two eyes. I've seen them easily, naked eye, at Brookhaven many times. The nebulosity surrounding the stars is easily visible. I find that with higher powers, there's only a part of the cluster it field of view, makes them easy to see, at least for me. In a 10-inch Dobsonian, you can see the entire cluster at about 20 power. If you use something around a 60-millimeter wide field eyepiece. But the dazzling light from the stars makes the nebulosity difficult. If you're viewing the Pleiades in this way, you can see the entire cluster in a wide field pair of binoculars. With 10 inches of aperture behind it, you can see many fainter stars, but the eyes are too dazzled to see much of the nebulosity as well. However, in an 8-inch telescope that my friend Dennis and I jointly share, using a 52-millimeter eyepiece, yields about 40 power. This only shows part of the cluster, yet you can easily see the nebulosity around some of the stars. The entire cluster contains between 100 and 200 stars, probably about 150, and spans a spherical region of space about 14 light years in diameter. It's only about 400 light years away. This is interesting. We're going to talk about something, this is slide number 13, by the way. We're going to talk about something that's part of the constellation Taurus, but it's easily seen. It's called the Hyades, also called Mel 25. The Hyades is mythology were the half-sisters of the Pleiades and daughters of Atlas and Aretha. The stars of Hyades are often associated with rainy and stormy weather in ancient times. The name itself is derived from the archaic Greek word that means to rain. Like the Pleiades, the Hyades look better in binoculars than they do in most telescopes, even more so than the Pleiades since they span a much larger area. And like the Pleiades, they are very easily made out with the unaided eye, with the cluster and Aldebaran forming the distinctive V shape that marks the face of the bull. Now, I've used a pair of 10 by 50 binoculars, and that V shape just fills the pair of binoculars. Aldebaran is not a member of the Hyades, but is actually a foreground object that's about 65 light years away. The Hyades are over twice the distance at about 151 light years. The Hyades form the second closest open star cluster to our solar system. The only known cluster that is closer is the Ursa Major moving group, which is also known as Colander 285, which is most of the stars in the Big Dipper are members of. The core of Ursa Major moving group is about 80 light years away. Please, M1. The first object on the most famous Messier catalog. M1 is also the Crab Nebula, a remnant of a supernova that exploded in July 4th, 1054 AD. Though almost 1,000 years have passed since the time of the supernova explosion, the Crab Nebula is easily seen in binoculars and even the smallest telescopes. M1 is easily found on a line between Elnath and Zeta Tauri, the tip of the bull's other horn. M1 lies in this line just 1 degree from Zeta. Binoculars show a small fuzzy patch that even in small telescopes of 3-inch class, the nebula shows the same basic lumpy oval outline in some photographs. Of course, more detail is visible in much larger instruments. By the way, there's a pulsar in the center of that planetary nebula. Number 15, NGC 1647, the Tyrant Moon Cluster. Dave Hutchinson describes NGC 1647 as a nice open cluster of about 80 stars. It is easy to find since it is just 3 degrees from Aldebaran, between the bull's horns, and it stands out well on binoculars or even a finder scope. It fills lowest power a field of view and an 8-inch telescope at 40 power, and it reminds a lot of people of looking at the Beehive cluster that's in Cancer. There's a nice bright pair of stars at the southern edge of the cluster, with a fainter member of the pair having a distinct reddish-orange color. These 2 stars are probably foreground objects since they are brighter than the cluster stars themselves. This is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 16, sir, and there are more Astronomical League observing program objects than the constellation of Taurus the Bull. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League now has over 70. I counted them the other night. There's 72 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in one observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 17, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Taurus the Bull. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on the deep sky objects that I've borrowed, stolen, used tonight. I've also used the website occasionally, constellation-guide.com, for information too. Next week, we're going to take a look at 2 different constellations, Selim, the chisel, the sculptor's chisel, and Columba, the dove. And that's it for the constellation of the week. Let's take this back to Billy, KF5 PDS.
Great. Thank you very much, Chaz. I always love learning about the constellations. All right, next up, Tom, I'm going to turn the net over to you, KE5ICX. If you'll do a check-in round before you give us a report on space launches for this week, that would be awesome. So KE5ICX from KF5 PDS.
Billy, this is KE5ICX. I'm going to take additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Come on, join us.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
That was a challenge. I did get Joe, KG5ZMG, over in Arlington. There was another station, I'm not sure. I got a Kilo Golf Papa call. Try again.
Alpha, Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Thank you. Your audio was really, really low, and now it's perfect. Kilo Golf 5 APL, Alpha Papa Lima, that's Patrick in Dallas. Additional check-ins, come now.
Kilo Sierra 4, X-ray.
The one station, I think it's Kilo Golf call. If you can increase power or improve position, you're about 80%, well, actually more like 90% noise. I got a Kilo Golf 5. Try again. If you can't do that, just give me your call twice in your name. The braking station, we'll come back to you in a little bit during the next check-in round. You're just about 90% noise. I can barely make you out a Kilo Golf 5, and then after that I just lose it. So we'll come back to you. Let's see. My section's next, which is space launches for this week. This comes from, there's actually two sites you can go to, spacecoastlaunches.com, and the other one is spaceflightnow.com/launch schedules, or launch schedule. This is what we got for January 23rd. What is that, today? It was today. This may have already happened. I don't know. It slipped into my list of future things. The Falcon 9 Transporter 1 rocket will launch a ride-share flight to the Sun synchronous orbit with dozens of small microsatellites and nanosatellites for commercial and government clusters. I did see this, I think, on space.com. This is really the largest number of microsats that have been launched, so this could be very interesting. Next up, January 27th, Falcon 9 Starlink V.1.0 L17 from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Falcon 9 will launch the 18th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. A mission designated, what I told you, V10L17. Okay. Next up, in February, we have another launch from 39A. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 19th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. Surprise, yet another one. First quarter, we don't know exactly, Electron STP-27RM. This will launch from Launch Complex 2, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Island, Virginia. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch on its first mission from a new launch pad at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Wallops Island, Virginia. The launch customer is the U.S. Air Force, and the mission will launch an experimental mission for the space test program called Monolith with a space weather instrument. The Monolith mission will demonstrate the ability of a small satellite to support large aperture payloads. We have also in February another Starlink. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 20th batch of approximately 60 satellites for the SpaceX Starlink broadband network. February 14th, 15th, Soyuz Progress 77P will launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. This will be the 77th Progress cargo delivery ship to the International Space Station. Rocket will fly in the Soyuz 2.1A configuration, which is the classic configuration they always do. And finally, February 20th, we launch a Northrop Grumman Antares rocket from the Wallops Island Pad 0A, 16th Cygnus cargo freighter on the 15th operational cargo delivery flight to the International Space Station. The mission is known as NG-15. The rocket will fly the Artemis 230 configuration with two RD-181 first stage engines and the Castor 30XL second stage. This is kind of interesting. This is a major launch from Wallops Island. So this is a significant upgrade for them, I think, if I'm reading my stuff correctly. This is KE5ICX, back to net control.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours.
Billy, this article is entitled Astronomers Discover First Cloudless Jupiter-like Planet. This marks the second time astronomers have ever observed a cloud-free exoplanet. Astronomers at the Center for Astrophysics at Harvard and Smithsonian have detected the first Jupiter-like planet without clouds or haze in its observable atmosphere. The findings were published in this month in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. Named WASP-62b, this gas giant was first detected in 2012 through the wide-angle search for planets, WASP, South Survey. Its atmosphere, however, has never been closely studied until now. For my thesis, I have been working on exoplanet characterization, says Munaza Alam, a graduate student at the Center for Astrophysics who led the study. I've discovered planets. I take discovered planets and I follow up on them to characterize their atmospheres. Known as a hot Jupiter, the WASP-62b is 575 light-years away and about half the mass of our solar system's Jupiter. However, unlike our Jupiter, which takes nearly 12 years to orbit the Sun, WASP-62b completes a rotation around its star in just 4.5 days. This proximity to the star makes it extremely hot, hence the name Hot Jupiter. Using the Hubble Space Telescope, Alam recorded data and observations of the planet using spectroscopy, the study of electromagnetic radiation, to help detect chemical elements. Alam specifically monitored WASP-62b as it swept in front of its host star 3 times, making visible light observations which can detect the presence of sodium and potassium in a planet's atmosphere. I'll admit that at first I wasn't too excited about this planet, Alam says, but once I started to take a look at the data, I got excited. While there was no evidence of potassium, sodium's presence was strikingly clear. The team was able to view the full sodium absorption lines in their data, or its complete fingerprint. Clouds or haze in the atmosphere would obscure the complete signature of sodium, Adam explains, and astronomers usually can only make out small hints of its presence. This is shocking gun evidence that we are seeing a clear atmosphere, she says. Cloud-free planets are exceedingly rare. Astronomers estimate that less than 7% of exoplanets have clear atmospheres, according to recent research. For example, the first and only other known exoplanet with a clear atmosphere was discovered in 2018, named WASP-96b. It is classified as a hot Saturn. Astronomers believe studying exoplanets with cloudless atmospheres can lead to a better understanding of how they were formed. Their rarity suggests something else is going on, or they formed in a different way than most planets, Salam says. Clear atmospheres also make it easier to study the chemical composition of planets, which can help identify what a planet is made of. With the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope later this year, the team hopes to have new opportunities to study and better understand WASP-62b. The telescope's improved technologies, like higher resolution and better precision, should help them probe the atmosphere even closer to search for the presence of more elements such as silicon. Okay, back to Nat. This is from ScienceDaily.com. WB50ZL.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. All right, next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. So I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us info on visible satellite passages.
Nothing from the International Space Station here in the Dallas area, so that kind of sucks, but it's okay. Let's see, we have the X-37B. It has, which is the winged spacecraft, the super secret unmanned spacecraft from the U.S. Space Force. It has one pass on February 1st that looks pretty good. It's 0.5 magnitude at 1851, 651 Dallas time. It reaches its highest point at 1854 at 87 degrees, nearly directly overhead, and then falls at 1857. So that's a nice, healthy pass if you'd like to see that. Our venerable favorite is Envisat. Envisat is a abandoned satellite. No longer is running. It's no longer providing data. It's a north-south polar satellite. It has it's very large. January 23rd is a 3.1 magnitude. It reaches it comes out of the north at 6:34, reaches its highest point. Am I into the right one? Yeah. Reaches highest point at 53 degrees at 6:39 out of the west northwest, and falls at 6:44. The next day, January 24th, it has another pass, 6.2 magnitude. Boy, that's rather. Wait a minute. First pass, 3.4 magnitude at 5:57 a.m. Reaches its highest point at 6:02, 64 degrees, not bad, and it falls at 6:07 at 10 degrees. So it's a full pass. Next one is January 26th. Let me reset. January 26th, 2.9 magnitude at 6:22 a.m. out of the north, falls. It reaches its highest point at 69 degrees at 6:27, and then it falls at 6:32. Yet again, another really good pass. Then finally, we have on February 1st, 3.3 magnitude, 5:59 a.m., 10 degrees, reaches its highest point at 70 degrees at 6:05, and it falls at 6:10 at 10 degrees to the south. So all of these are really good passes. You should be able to see them here in Dallas. It's quite interesting. North-south stuff, polar orbit stuff is pretty consistent. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. All right. Well, we still have time left, so let's do a little astronomical Q&A. So if there's anyone out there who has any astronomical questions, and would like to, tap the minds of our crack team of astronomers and astronomy enthusiasts, please come now with your questions and your call sign.
I have a comment about Tom's SpaceX launch.
All right, N5BD, go ahead with your question or comment.
Billy, Tom mentioned that there was a SpaceX launch that was supposed to go on today. It did not happen. It was scrubbed due to weather. And they're going to try it again tomorrow morning. If successful, it'll be the most satellites ever launched on a single rocket. 143 satellites. Of course, most of them are small, but still, it shows you just how many satellites are going up now. A lot of satellites. Again, they're going to try it again tomorrow morning, I believe about 9 o'clock Central Time. Hopefully they'll make it. N5BB.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill, for that information. Does anybody else have any other comments or any questions that they would like to ask? We've got a lot of knowledgeable folks here, so if you have a question, please come now with your call sign.
Whiskey X-Ray 5, Foxtrot Tango Sierra.
Okay, did I hear correctly? Yankee X-Ray 5 Foxtrot Tango Sierra. Did you have a question? Feel free to correct me if I got your call sign wrong.
Whiskey X-Ray 5, Tango Sierra Mobile, Brian, down PGBT right now near Northgate Drive. And my question is, when it's not raining, hi, where is the best place in DFW to go stargazing? Does anybody have any preferences? Because I'd kind of like to go stargazing one of these nights that I have off work.
That was Whiskey X-Ray 5 Tango Sierra. That's a very good question. If anybody has some answers or would like to make some recommendations of sites to go stargazing, please come now with your call sign.
F5JHA.
Okay, F5JHA, Chaz, go ahead.
Tom volunteered me over on Echolink, so I would suggest Tom's backyard. Actually, inside DFW there's not a place that's good inside the DFW area to do observing. You need to get away from the city lights. I always recommend going to a state park. There are 80 state parks and wildlife refuges that you can actually go visit. Now, right now, there's a limitation with COVID on going there, but that's what I would recommend because you're going to be safe there. You can go camping at those locations. But again, right now with the COVID situation, most of those places are closed to overnight camping. But that's what I would suggest doing. Copper Break State Park is a good place to go. I've been there before. Lake Ray Roberts State Park, if you go to the northern one, there's actually 3 different parks along Lake Ray Roberts, but the northern one, that is called Johnson Branch Unit. That works pretty well. We take our students to that one. But I would go to ones that are close by, within an hour drive or so. Lake Ray Roberts State Park is only about a 45-minute drive or so from the northern part of the Metroplex. So those are places that I would suggest going. Inside the Metroplex, you've just got too many lights. Did that answer your question? KF5JHA. Yes, sir. I kind of figured light pollution was going to be an issue, but didn't exact. I was kind of hoping, crossing my fingers, that there was going to be some secret little place that somebody had here. But I guess I'll look for parks near the south side of DFW then, because I live in Arlington, so I'm on my way back home right now. So I guess I'll just look for parks then. Thanks for the information. KF5JJ, WX5FTS Mobile.
Thank you very much, Brian, for the great question, and Chaz for the great answer. Sorry, does anyone else have any questions? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing any, so at this time I will turn the net over to Tom, KE5I6, if you'll do final check-in round and get us the final count for this evening's net. This is KE5I6 from KF5PDS.
This is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and take any final check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, this is your last chance. Please come with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting.
I'll go ahead and officially check in. KE5ICX, this is Whiskey X-Ray 5 Foxtrot Tango Sierra, Brian, Grand Prairie.
MFI, Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, Ted, Dallas, low power.
Hey, I have WX5 FTS, that's Brian in Grand Prairie, WB4 MSI, Ted, Dallas, low power. There might have been a double. It may have resolved itself. Anyone else? Please come now. Final check-ins. Miss Billy, we have 27 check-ins this evening. KE5I6.
Great, thank you very much. Copy that we had 27 hams participating on the air. So thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:28 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember to stay tuned for the Afterglow movie net following Skynet. Usually pause for about 5 minutes and then start that net and to join in the discussion for 2007's The Man from Earth. 7-3, everybody.
Billy, and thank you for a really great net. This is KE5ICX. Yep, we'll be back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes? What's that, 300 seconds? I don't know. Whatever it is. Could be anything. We'll be back, Man from Earth, the Jerome Bixby story.
Completely operational.
Into a movie in 2007. So come back then. You don't necessarily have to have seen the movie. You can discuss whatever you want about, well, you'll find out. It's a very interesting story. So come back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and we'll start. Anybody who would like to be net control, here's your opportunity. Think about it. I'll come back and ask after about 4 minutes. See you then. This is KE5I6. All right, listen up, you mugs. Who wants to do the Afterglow Movie Net NCS? Please come now.
KI-5, Chief.
Oh, there was a station calling KI-5 Juliet something. Go ahead.
Copy.
Oh, it's kind of me neither. I got Kilo India 5 Juliet. Something, I think. Go ahead.
I repeat, this is Kilo India 5, Juliet Charlie Mike Thomas in Lewis checking into the Afterglow net.
Okay, I got you. Looking for net control. Please stand by. I think that was from, what was that from? The other movie, Outer Limits. Anyone want to be net control for tonight? I know you're out there, you're listening. Stand up and be counted. You don't even have to have seen the movie.
Okay, I'll do it. This is K5A&E. Just got my spreadsheet together.
Awesome, Kane, you got it. Thank you very much. And when you're ready, go ahead and start this baby.
Hello, welcome to the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. Every week we get together and watch a movie, and it's normally some kind of sci-fi movie, and then we'll meet back up on this repeater and talk about what we saw. Oftentimes these movies are sci-fi. Sometimes we, branch out and try other things as well, but we're a bunch of nerds talking on the radio. It's going to be sci-fi most of the time. So yeah, we meet here right about 10:30 every week and talk movies. This week's movie was The Man from Earth, a 2007 movie talking about a retiring professor that drives all of his friends crazy. Let's go ahead and read the description that Tom sent out for us. Roddenberry peered at the writer. He is sizing him up. Then he spoke. Bixby, he bellowed. I fought into your pirate universe, Klingon battles, immortal Leonardo da Vinci, and intergalactic alien hijackings. But this one, about a college professor who thinks he's lived for 14,000 years, is a bridge too far. Get me a story with a Kirk love interest, a ripped shirt, a speech about freedom in space, and simple language Shatner can pronounce, and I need it this afternoon. Roddenberry downed his 12 scotch and soda that morning, placed his head on his desk, and fell asleep. Bixby started as a hulking, sleeping man, remembering happier days with Rod Sterling. He had to do something with this script. So yeah, pretty simple, pretty quick and easy, sci-fi-ish kind of movie. Really interesting style. And yeah, I bet this is going to be a nice long one tonight. So yeah, we'll normally we have 3 parts to this. We'll take check-ins, and then we'll talk about the plot, and then we'll take another round of check-ins, see if anybody else has joined us, and we'll talk characterization, and then we'll have a 3rd part afterwards, after another round of check-ins, and we'll talk about anything else you want to talk about with this movie. We wouldn't normally talk about things like special effects and whatnot, but this all kind of takes place in single cabins, so there's not a lot of special effects. So anyways, let's continue on. Time for our first round of check-ins. If you'd like to check in to the movie night, Afterglow Movie Net, with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and if you saw the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. Yes, I did see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, Daniel Weber. Yes, I saw the film.
Remember, Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I saw part of the movie. India Charlie X-ray, Thomasville. Yep, I saw the movie.
Alrighty. N5DB, Bill in Irving, who saw the movie. KG5, BZW, Jay in Weatherford, who saw the movie. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas, who saw part of the movie. And KE5, ICX, Tom in Louisville, who saw the movie. In Tom's transmission, we had a double there. Go ahead and come on in, whoever was doubling. Alrighty then. We had one station check in a little bit early. If you'd like to go ahead and come on in again, come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're transferred from, and if you saw the movie.
Yes, this is Kilo, India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas, and Euless. I did not see the movie, but I've been wanting to check into this net for almost over 2 now, so I thought I might as well get to it. Back to you, Net Control.
Alrighty, once again, that is KI5, JCM, Thomas, and Euless, who did not see the movie. Did I get that call?
That is affirmative.
Alrighty, let's shout out to Echolink now. Is there anybody in particular on Echolink that would like to check in? Echolink check-ins now. Come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and if you saw the movie.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman. Yes, I saw the film.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike, November, James, Oklahoma. I saw the movie.
For Golf 5 Yankee, Allen in Garland saw the movie. Alright, I heard KF5 PDF, Billy and Sherman, who saw the movie. KG5 TMN, James, who saw the movie. NG5Y, Al, who saw the movie. Let's see, any other general check-ins? Any other check-ins for the Afterglow Movie Net? Come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're listening from, and if you saw the movie.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Name is Linda Mendesetto, and yes, I saw the movie.
Right, I heard WB5, OZL, Brenda, and DeSoto, who saw the movie. Last call for check-in before we get going here. If you'd like to, before we talk about The Man from Earth, come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and if you saw the movie.
Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. I did see the movie.
Sorry about that, I missed a little bit of your call sign there. I got Kilo 5. Come again, John?
Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, KB9 is okay. Sean in Fort Worth.
Alright, got you down. KB9 SOK, John in Fort Worth, and yes, you saw the movie. Alrighty then. Looks like a pretty good list here. Let's get going. I'm just gonna pick randomly for most of these. So let's pick someone at random here. KF5 PDF, Billy. What do you think of the plot?
Good evening, Kane, and everyone on the net. Yeah, I really like this film. I've known about it for a few years now, and I've actually seen it about half a dozen times. I just watched it twice this week. I really enjoy this plot. I find it engaging. It's a fun, thought experiment, and it really kept you guessing. It's like at first you get totally sucked in, and then you wonder if it's real, and then you find out other details, and it really keeps you on your toes. I don't want to give away too much, but for other folks to divulge. But yeah, I really like the plot. It moves along, even though it's not an action film. It's very intellectual, a lot of discussion. And I always like movies that are like this, where you have a core set of characters that carry throughout the entire film. Each one keeps you engaged in their own way. And I thought that the question answer, the way it was done in the film, just kept drawing out more information, and just really kept it moving along. And then there'd be pauses, and there would be some discussion outside the house, and then come back in, and everybody would go back into the question answer, and it just was very compelling, I thought, and I really liked the way that they moved the story along. And I thought it had appropriate, pauses in the conversation to allow people to mull things over, and, they're guessing and second guessing and buying in, and all of a sudden retracting their buy-in to the story. So I thought it was very well done, and, to me there was no lag. It felt like it moved appropriately, and kept my attention the full time. So I really liked this film, and I know we'll talk about characters later, but I really liked all the characters too. So I'll return it to you for other folks to comment. So this is KF5 PDS, back to net.
KF5 PDS, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. And we're going to continue talking about the plot, and let's just pick another name out of the hat here. N5DB. Bill, what do you think of?
This is N5DB. Well, I also like the plot. Once it got heavily into the plot, I figured out how it must, what most of the rest of the plot was going to be. It was kind of obvious where it was going, where it nearly had to go. But I thought the plot twist at the very end, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about this because I don't think it's reasonable to hide things from people. If you haven't seen it, well, turn your radio off if you don't want to hear about it. But if you did see part of the movie, you might want to know how it ended up. And of course, what happened was toward the end of the movie, John, the protagonist, suddenly says, okay, I made all this up. I was just joking. It was completely made up. Most of the people leave. Most of his friends leave. But the elderly psychologist returns. And we learn that the elderly psychologist is John's son. He has a heart attack or whatever, or stroke, and the ambulance comes to get him, and he dies. So that's rather a poignant moment when the psychologist, I forget his name in the movie, and his wife had just died, and he dies. And that was John's son, one of his sons. So you learn there at the very end of the movie that No, it really is all true. And then, of course, they had to throw a little plot twist on at the very end, where his girlfriend evidently is going to go and get in his truck and go away with him. Which is interesting, because I guess she's going to leave her car there. Anyway. Again, I liked it. Thought it was interesting. There are some problems, of course, with it. The problem is, of course, and they kind of skip over this. I mean, they kind of lightly touch on it. Is it's scientifically very infeasible for this to happen. And it's not really explained why he can't be injured, why nobody has killed him in all these years, why he survived all these infectious diseases, why his body regenerates evidently when he's injured, why he doesn't age, why did he age up to the age of 35 and then stop? All this is not explained. But again, on these kinds of movies, they can't explain all of this. So this is kind of science fiction mixed with fantasy. That's how I view it, because the actual concept of somebody living for, 17,000 years or whatever it was, is obviously fantasy. But it made it interesting because you wanted to listen to more, to hear more about what had happened in the past, and then you got to want to hear more about historical things. So the fact that he had that painting from Van Gogh was very interesting. That added a little bit to it also. That's all I got in 5BB.
N5BB, this is 5A&E, Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC, and we're going to keep talking about the plot, even though you think it's a little unrealistic. I don't know, I can see it. Who knows, maybe I'm 17,000 years old. Let's continue on. KG5BZW, Jay in Weatherford, what do you think of the plot?
Oh, this is KG5BCW. Yeah, this is one of those things where, okay, first of all, I don't hate the movie, but I don't know. It's for a group of supposed scientists. You think they would ask about something to me that's obvious, like how do you keep all these teeth all these years? It's like, besides the scars, it's like, of course, scars pretty much kind of, I guess, in the same realm, but, I mean, I guess maybe he regenerates teeth every now and then. I don't know. It'd be very weird. So, yeah, there's just some problems. And because of those problems, you have to have the characters ignore the problems too. And I kind of felt the characters were ignoring the problems, things that are kind of obvious to ask that they should have asked, but they couldn't ask because that would just cause the whole story to fall apart. So yeah, it's that way. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I kind of agree with the positive comments so far about the plot and how it kind of unfolds and all that. But it's, I guess I got a second thing that they kind of, I don't know. It's a maybe I should have prepared myself a little bit more for this net. It almost delves into areas I almost consider almost pseudo-intellectual and kind of, I don't know. It's like, I think part of it is just the characters acting, just having to act the way they do. And the one character, these aren't really faults of the characters. It's just, how they question the guy. I was getting really annoyed about anything. The guy that no, it says that it was really annoying and just got a little bit on my nerves as far as some of the absurdities. But other than that, it's not bad, I guess. I'll just leave it at that. KG5 BCW.
KG5BZW, this is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5FT. Let's continue talking about the plot for this movie tonight, and pick another random name out of the hat. Let's hop to KG5PMN, James. What do you think of the plot?
This is KG, Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James up here in Oklahoma. What did I think about the plot? Well, when they first got there at the house and started up in the first 5 minutes, I kind of expected them to go in a different direction, and they just kind of stayed at the house talking about a, history lesson in a capsule, in a nutshell, you could call it. I don't know. It was kind of hard for me to keep track of. I could follow some of the stuff down through history and the religious stuff. After they got into the religion, I think was when he kind of started getting out of when they started to disbelieve some of the things that he was actually doing and talking about. Send it back to the net, KG5PMN.
PMN, this is K5A&E, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And we're going to keep talking about the plot from The Man from Earth and pick another random name out of the hat. Let's go back up kind of near the top of the list. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, what do you think of the plot?
Well, King, good evening. I'm glad you're in control, and sadly the answer is not much. I'm glad there are folks who got something out of this movie, but I just couldn't make it very far. When you have a heavily dialogue-driven movie that really doesn't have much of a plot, it's very important that the dialogue be interesting and well-written, the actors be effective, and that you care about their characters. And for me, none of those things were true. It was much rather worse than watching a community college production of Waiting for Godot. I just wanted them all to stop talking. I guess Tom's tongue-in-cheek plot summary about Gene Roddenberry wanted some ripped shirts and a fist fight or something, I guess that might have applied to my reaction to this movie. I really don't demand action from everything, but I couldn't get into this. Now that might be because I've read a book that has a very similar premise but is vastly more interesting. Paul Anderson's The Boat of a Million Years. That's The Boat of a Million Years. If you like this or didn't like this, but nevertheless you'd like to see something like it done better, that's a book with a more interesting plot. Give it a try. But yes, for me the biggest single plot hole, as with I think N5BB, was the idea that somehow he's made it all these years without dying in a motor vehicle accident, or tripping and falling, or, I don't know, a runaway horse, or angry mammoth or something.
there's so many ways we humans get hurt that have nothing to do with getting old. It's just hard to believe nothing ever caught up with him. And in fact, I didn't. At first, I was bored. So I just couldn't get into the plot, but I'm glad some people did, and I wanted to make sure I recommended The Vote of a Million Years. November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. This is K5 A&E, net control for the Astronomy net. And yeah, I definitely agree with you. This seems like it would be a lot better in book form than necessarily a movie. Because it's like there's really not too much to see, going on in this. But yeah, that sounds like an interesting book. It's The Boat of a Million Years is the recommendation. I'll go ahead and bookmark that and maybe check it out sometime. Thanks for sharing. Let's continue on. Pick another random out of the hat here. Let's go to WB5OZL, Brenda in DeSoto. What do you think of the plot?
WB5OZL. I liked it more than I should. I was riveted by the movie. I thought it was a fascinating concept. But I was, left a little wanting at the plot. I would have wanted it to go in more directions. Most of it was just this oppositional thing. It's like, this is what I did, and I'm saying, no, you didn't, and people getting upset. I'm not sure what he expected out of these people for a reaction. If they just totally bought into it, now his secret's out and he's never going to be safe again, which seems very reckless to me. And if they don't believe any of it, then there, here are these dear friends getting together, and suddenly there's hostility and anger and resentment. So I don't know what purpose it would serve for him to tell the story that nobody's going to believe. Also, I probably would have asked different questions of him. A lot of the questions were just gotcha, trying to trip him up. And, I question the premise that you could just pick up every 10 years and go somewhere and get a birth certificate or a degree or, be believable as a new person. And 1500 was probably easier to do than it is now. You've got to have documentation. I think if I were him, I'd be a lot more fascinating with the changes in the world and what's going to happen next. He just didn't have a whole joy of life thing going. And almost like he's sort of, tapped out, done with it all. So, and then no idea where he's going to go. I'd have some idea before I started out. You really kind of need something to look forward to. And I think it's very depressing just to break from your past and leave everybody that you know and go somewhere else and just start over without knowing a soul. Wouldn't appeal to me. And I wonder what happened to the fire. I didn't see them turn it off. You don't just walk out leaving the fire going. Let's see, what else? There's a sequel to this. And in the sequel, he's starting to age and things are not healing as fast. I think I'd like to look at that and see what it's about. Okay, back to that. WB5OZL.
WB5OZL, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. And I can definitely understand the feeling of, not being able to just, walk away and leave everybody that you know behind. But if he truly is this, forever being immortal kind of person, to a certain extent, everybody else is always leaving him behind. It's another perspective to see that from. Let's continue on. We're going to continue talking about the plot from The Man from Earth. And let's take another random name out of the hat here. KE5ICX. Tom, what do you think of the plot?
Well, thank you, Kane, and thanks for doing the net. This is KE5ICX. I liked it. I really did. And Tony mentioned Waiting for Godot, and I would add to that, it kind of has that feel and vibe to it. Another film is called My Dinner with Andre, which is essentially the same sort of thing, a one-room activity. In this case, it was in a restaurant. I've mentioned on this net before, this had that vibe. Now, the things about, just lost his name here, Jerome Bixby. Jerome Bixby has written a number of science fiction things, probably television, otherwise. I love his stuff, the Mirror, Mirror Universe thing that continues on to this day. Even the most latest Star Trek is of his inspiration. So, and of course, what was it, the episode, It's a Good Life with the Billy Mooney thing. So those two things alone, I think, are really fantastic and memorable. I fit this one in exactly the same way. This is really cool. Let me reset. The story has it's everybody's trapped. Gary, was it Gary Oldman? What's his name? Oh, jeez. I had my notes and I can barely read them now. But Oldman, or Old Man, is the surname of our character here. He is, trying to express everything that's going on. He's leaving. He's moving on. He's been there long enough. It's time to move on. And he decides to go ahead and reveal himself. How many times has he done this? Probably hundreds. And as such, he's saying goodbye, and he lets them know who he is. I think that's kind of one of the most important things of it. And they can't handle it. The characters themselves are either admonishing him or think he's nuts, or they consider it blasphemy. And as such, he says, okay, I made it up. Of course, with the story twist, he does not. He has bona fide things he can tell. Our psychiatrist, I think it was a psychiatrist, in all of this, who is busy doing the analysis of everybody in the room, including our protagonist. So I thought that was quite interesting, and then he takes him out at the end. To be expected, I think, that he's probably did that, or whether he be a Cro-Magnon man, and told them things that he didn't know or wouldn't know. And then the other thing is that the whole thing is that he's being sarcastic through all of it. Now, one of the comments in here is that, what do you remember, and how do you remember it? How can you be so exact? He says, well, do you remember what you did Thursday, in essence, said in conclusion? No. I was thinking, too, of all the people, of all the, I am a dog lover. I love dogs. I've had a lot of them. It takes me a while to remember who they are and which ones did what. It becomes kind of a, I'm 62 years old, and I've had, 8 dogs through that time, and I mix them up, and I can't remember exactly who did what and where and everything else. Plus the fact that they're all black dogs. I guess I've got a thing for that. I never even thought about it until I ended up at 8 dogs through the years. Does that make a difference? I don't know. But it makes sense when you're looking at this story that this becomes a mush for him of sorts, and he remembers specific stories, and he tells them what they are because they're touchstones, not only for himself, but for humanity as well. And anytime, I am Spartacus, or I am Jesus Christ, and he tells the story in such a way as is not important. You guys made it a big deal. I think that's really cool. Another thing that comes out of this that I really enjoyed is that when you write, when you're trying to write things down, whether it be fiction fictional or literal, but particularly with fiction, is that you've got a toolbox of things that you have to have in order to tell a story, to weave a yarn. And in order to do that, you think out loud. I talk to myself in a frickin' shower. A person has to kind of organize their thoughts, and in this case, Bixby is taking history and organizing it out in his own mind as to what exactly that means. What if, for example, Jesus wasn't the Son of God? Maybe he was just an ordinary guy. And the things that happened after that was extraordinary because the person who lived it was extraordinary in and of themselves, and that people take and extrapolate or change it, and that was kind of the dynamics of what was going on with the people in the room. They were all professors, knowledgeable, and they're trying to understand what's going on using their own education and predisposition on the things with their own prejudices. And that just kind of whisked around the room through the whole thing. I thought that was great. It was wonderful. I love people with a repartee. And some of it came out kind of, fell flat because the characters themselves were being judgmental. And other times it was like, I want to believe this because this is opening a door I hadn't seen before. And finally, one of the things that I think is really important to me is that, and this happened with my dinner with Andre and Waiting for Godot, is that you are forced to listen to what people are saying. Now, there's an elevator story that goes with that when you're stuck in a room and you can't escape. Facebook's an example of that, by the way, is that things come out. The good, the bad, and the ugly come out of that. And what do you learn from that? If you're involved directly, the individuals are involved directly, then their emotions prevail. But if you're in the fourth wall, if you're the person on the outside and you're watching this happen, you can look at it objectively. You can actually think about what's going on. And that, to me, is really cool. Less is more to me. This movie had the bare minimum. And I thought that was really cool because I'm still thinking about the concepts, the ideas, what they talked about, the historical significance and not. I thought that was fantastic. Did I like the movie? Yeah. Okay, I'm done. KE5I6.
KE5ICX, this is K5A&E Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. Thank you for that very deep and detailed analysis. Let's continue on here, continue to talk about the plot on The Man from Earth. Let's pick another random name out of the hat here. KB9SOK, John. What do you think of the plot?
KB9SOK, yeah, that's going to be tough to follow Tom there. That was quite the cover of it. Yeah, I enjoyed the movie as well. I actually thought it was pretty well done. The producers must have loved this movie because there could have been a lot of cost involved just being in a cabin. But I did like the concept and the thought process that when they had to go into this to write a script like this I would think it'd been very tricky, just for one person to sit down and think of how all these different professors would react and then keep the story flowing and then keeping the history and proper continuity would be pretty tough, and also just how this person would react. And I felt that they probably hit it pretty realistically if somebody was able to live that long. And I have seen a few other movies that have touched on this, especially the memory issue. You don't remember the highlights and the lows because, everything would blend. Just as Tom was mentioning, a couple of seasons back, Doctor Who did this actually with a couple episodes with one of the stars. They kind of touched on that same stuff. Now, could I see professors doing that, sitting around, going around the table like that? Yeah, absolutely. Several years back, I had the opportunity to work with some professors on a project for teaching children different methods. And after the program was done, they invited everybody for a dinner. And the head person, the head of the project, had thrown out there that he felt that the game Civilization was actually pretty accurate in how it really portrayed how things would go if you were to change those little tweaks. And the professors, which I'm not one, or have a PhD, the rest of them, it kind of went around the table, and they had their objections, and they went back and forth. And this movie reminded me very much of that experience, because not being at the level they were, I was in my 20s. I was just sitting there listening to them like I was watching a movie, and so yeah, it really reminded me of that memory that I almost forgot. But so yeah, I really liked the way they did this. Yeah, there's a few parts I felt was a little slow. There was a part in there, or I would have liked to see more stuff like the Van Gogh stuff being mentioned. A little more history. They spent pretty much half the movie going down the religious rabbit hole, which I won't get into. But overall, I thought it was very well done. A couple characters I think were a little over the top. I don't think they would have, Reverend Professors would have reacted quite that badly to it. But all in all, it was enjoyable. The sequel, which was mentioned earlier, I didn't see that. The ratings for it weren't near as good as the first one, so I'm hesitant to watch it. I'm afraid it might kind of ruin it, the overall first one for me. But I may go back and give it a try as well. That's all I got. This is KB9SOK. Back to net control.
KB9SOK, this is K5ANE net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And we'll continue talking about the plot here for this from Earth, and we'll take another random name out of the hat here. We'll go to KI5JCM Thomas. I know you said you didn't see the movie, but anything you'd like to share from what you've heard about it? This is 580.
KI5JCM. I kind of think it was bad of them to make a sequel, because in the sequel they confirm he really is 14,000 years old, and I think a better ending is TV question. I also really hate when religious writers, the one group you're allowed to take a swipe at is Christians. I think you could have done it far more imaginatively than this. It's just, all in all, I haven't seen it. It seems okay, probably not at the top of my wish list, on the watch list. Back to you, Net Control.
KI5JCM, this is K5ANE net control for the Actual Movie Net, and thanks for stopping by. Maybe you check it out sometime, maybe not. And yeah, this is the movie. Be glad to have you back again. Continuing on here, we have got one more here on the list. NG5Y, Alan, what did you think of the plot?
Well, I didn't have any preconceived ideas about this movie. I'd never heard of it before. I actually found the movie quite entertaining. I liked the plot. I liked the questions that it raised. Certainly made you think. I did not have the problem of wishing the characters would just stop talking. The book they mentioned, maybe I should read sometime, but I liked the movie quite a bit, and it was a think piece and a campfire story. That's all I got for you. 5Y, back to the net.
NG5Y, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight we're talking about the man from Earth. If there are any other people that would like to check in, come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and if you saw the movie. All right, nothing heard. I guess we'll go ahead and share what I thought about the plot. I first stumbled upon this movie a couple of years ago, and I was originally kind of expecting for this to be a bit more exciting, too, because the trailer does a pretty decent job at hyping it up for a low-budget movie. And, yeah, then I watched the movie, and it's a bunch of, people sitting around in the cabin the entire night. And it's when it's sci-fi, it's not necessarily the most exciting movie out there, but it's definitely a really interesting one. I personally have a lot of friends that are kind of into like apologetics, and it's not a uncommon thing for me to be debating and talking about things that are not easily falsifiable from a bunch of people sitting around in a cabin. So it's always interesting seeing these kinds of arguments as far as like, oh well, I'm a 1,000-year-old caveman, prove me wrong. It's like, well, like how did you really prove him wrong? Such a thing. It's really kind of hard to. It's fun to kind of have these kinds of debate talks and whatnot, and have such kinds of debates. Especially as long as you don't take it as emotional as some of the other people. So that's pretty good movie, I'd say. But yeah, it does feel a little bit strange at times. Some of the pacing could have been, I don't know, a little bit better, but overall it wasn't too bad. It didn't have any parts that were like really slow or something like that for a movie sitting around in a cabin all day. But yeah, overall it kind of almost had that 12 Angry Men kind of vibe to it as far as, people, they're not really going anywhere. They're not really doing anything. They're just sitting around and talking. So, yeah. So let's continue on to the next round here. And this round we're going to talk about characterization. So let's get started. We'll continue on by picking random names out of the hat here. We'll start off with WB5OZL. Brenda, what do you think of the characters?
WB5OZL. I have mixed feelings about it. I think it was pretty well cast. It was an interesting mix of characters, but in many cases they were sort of not believable. Okay, here's this guy, his wife died the day before, and he shows up, he's called to come, and nobody mentions it. And the guy that knows, I mean, usually if somebody dies and you see somebody, that's the first thing you tell. Oh, you know, so-and-so died. This is real important news to everybody. Nobody mentioned it, or nobody said, hey, sorry about your wife, and which I found a little bit unbelievable, but that was a contrivance to force the story along, of course. The older lady was pretty obnoxious. I was, kind of wondering how she fit into this group because she was so different. And she's just too mother-in-law-ish. The main character, I don't know how I feel about him in this role as being believable. It was just almost sort of intangible to me to get a grasp on him. The other characters, to some extent, were really interesting people, and I would like to be there with them and visit with them. I think that would be really interesting to talk to these folks and be friends with them. Okay. That's all I got. WB5OZL.
WB5OZL, this is K5A&E Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. And we're going to continue talking about the characters of The Man from Earth. Pick another random name out of the hat. And let's jump to 5BB. What do you think of the characters?
Thank you, Kane. Excuse me, this is N5BB. Oh, let's see. John Oldham. As was pointed out later on in the movie, kind of a pun for his name, Old Man. Several things bothered me about the character called Old Man, the way it was played. And I don't know if this is the way the screenplay was written or the way that it was directed or the way that the actor portrayed it. but it seemed to me like he did not have depth, character depth, as the other people, which is strange. So we hear all these things about his previous life, but somehow to me, the way that he recited them, he didn't seem like he had much zest for life or things. He was so analytical about it, but he was coldly analytical, if that makes any sense. He wasn't romantically, I'm using that not in the sexual romantic sense, but in just the general romance, the idea of romantic conceits or something. He wasn't, he didn't have any investment in the things. So he talked analytically about these things that happened before, the Buddha and everything. But we didn't really see a look of rapture in his face. We didn't hear him describe in a very convincing way things like the smells he'd smelled, the things he'd eaten, the enjoyment of life. Coldly analytical about everything. So it nearly seemed to me, and I'm not trying to say this was what the plot was supposed to be, but it reminds me maybe of an Isaac Asimov or Daniel I forget his last name, the robot that lives a huge amount of time and that looks like a human. It's nearly like he's a robot that's living and analyzing all these things, but he doesn't seem to me to have a human soul, an enjoyment for life. So even though these people like him and he likes them, there's a wall, there's a separation. And this continues on to this woman that's evidently his girlfriend, and though they kind of say they love each other, it's not convincing to me. Okay? I don't know what everybody else thought. It wasn't convincing to me. So that bothered me. It kind of made him, like I say, appear more like a robot than a real human that would have emotions and would weep about things and cry and laugh. I couldn't see him laughing, crying, and doing things like that. So I didn't care as much about his character. I nearly cared more about some of the other characters that did express emotions. So that bothered me. I don't know if it was supposed to be that way or if it just ended up that way. By the way, the author of this wrote the final part of it, of the screenplay, on his deathbed. His son dictated it, and his son was involved with the making of the follow-up movie, which I have not seen. That's all I got in 5BB.
This is K5A&E Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net, and yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's an interesting juxtaposition almost of how that turned out, of the character that, arguably has the most life, also at the same time seems to not. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and yeah, I don't know exactly where that comes from in there, because if it's his acting or if that's the way he was directed or what. But yeah, I definitely see that and agree with you on that. Let's continue talking about characterizations on the man from Earth. Pick another random name out of the hat here, and we go to KG5TMN. James, what do you think of the characters?
This is KG5PMN. I didn't get a whole lot out of the characters. I mean, they were, to me, just kind of sitting around talking and asking questions and listening to the guy that was claiming to be 14,000 years old talk. And I don't know, I just didn't get a whole lot out of them. Back to the net, KG5PMN.
This is T5ANE, Net Control for the Blue Movie Net. And we'll continue on and take another random name out of the hat here. KE5ICX, what do you think of the characters?
And this is KE5ICX. The characters, interestingly, is that they're kind of metaphors for just general people and the things they think. You've got the psychiatrist, you've got the theologist, you've got the philosophers. I mean, this is a judgment on whatever John was doing, and they would ask questions along the way. Of course, they did it in a quote friendly way, end quote, having to do with people in education and intellectuals. It was mentioned earlier. Somebody else had that same experience. Mine wasn't exactly, college professors. Mine was actually, believe it or not, high school instructors, many of whom I had like in class about 10 years earlier. Not the 5 years earlier. And I happened to wander into that realm again and found a completely different experience with them about how they treated students and all that, because it was sort of professional when I was a student, and then it turns out that there's this whole underbelly of things going on, and a little bit of pot and all that. I was, 20 at the time that this all happened. But it was fascinating. It really was. And I get that vibe when I'm watching this film. The thing that's really interesting, though, is this. The thing is that this is all kind of focused around John, with people throwing barbs at him and everything else. John is acting exactly like he should. He's old, very old. He's the old man, right? And he's been through everything. He is now going through yet another transitional moment in his life. This has happened 100 times before, at least. And as such, he's going through the motions. He opens up and tells them, like I mentioned in the last section, he says everything that he is, and they don't believe him. And he wants to see what the reaction is. If, his comments that he makes through the whole thing is somewhat, stoic. But I'm looking for something. There's some of the quotes in here, and I'm looking for the quote. Hold on. Doggone it, I was looking for, here it is. It says, the doctor, the psychiatrist says, when did you begin to believe you were Jesus? And he says, when did you begin to believe you were a psychiatrist? He says, since I graduated from Harvard Medical School and finished my residency, I had that feeling. Why I sometimes dream about it. Have you acted upon this belief? Man, I had the other one that was really interesting about Columbus. Hold on. All right, here it is. I had a chance to sail with Columbus, only I'm not the adventurous type. I was pretty sure the world was round, but at that point I still thought he might fall off at an edge someplace, which if anybody has ever read about Columbus, he fell off the edge early on in the game. The group, incredulous, look all around the room and say, look around you, John, we just did. So, knowing that, he had a first-person experience about Columbus in And it's legit. It is a legitimate thing. This is something a writer would say if he knows anything about Columbus. And they know that, and so there's kind of this slightly higher level conversation, but he does it in a first-person kind of way. You're telling us everything that we know, but you're doing it in a slightly dispassionate but accurate way. I like that. I really do. And the more you get into that sort of thing, you have to ask yourself one of two things. Is the writer really that good at this? Or are we reading too much into it, thinking of our own goodness? I don't know. This is the kind of writing I love because it leaves you wondering. It's another thing that, like Rod Serling would do in the stories he wrote, and the ones that Richard Matheson and Jerome Bixby, these guys wrote, were a single sentence is packed in with a lot going on. And your character has to deliver either in a stoic way, like we have here, in a passionate way in another, and in an angry way in another. And I think that this one, in this particular case, John Oldman, is doing it in a stoic way, and I think it's on purpose. And everybody else is reacting. They're the ones with the emotion, but Oldman's the one holding all the cards. And I see this in this story. KE5ICX.
KE5ICX, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net here on W5SC. And yeah, this definitely sounds like a pretty reasonable analysis as to why his character seems kind of lifeless and dull in some ways. That makes some sense. That he's been there, he's experienced it. He's just trying to see how other people are reacting to what he's saying. Makes some sense. Makes a lot of sense to me. Let's continue on talking about characterization on the Man from Earth. Pick another random name out of the hat here, and we have KG5BZW, Jay Weatherford. What do you think of the characters?
This is KG5BZW. What to say? So let's put it this way. There's John Oldman that has lived around those characters for the past 10 years, and then there's John Oldman. I mean, we'll just go ahead and call that a bit of an act or whatever, just for the sake of purpose of, since, he's supposedly revealing his true self or whatnot. And then there's John Oldman, who's actually, revealing himself, and it... There's it seems like John ought to be a little bit more relatable to the characters. I think I'm just. Oh gosh, I thought that I'm going to just abort what I'm saying and just go with this next thing. All of the characters seem to have their flaws in that I didn't quite buy their reactions. Of course, there's the elder lady whose reactions were just a little bit over the top on some things, but a number of their reactions were over the top, and just gosh. Oh, I don't know. I do have a feeling it could be done better. Especially, I didn't really think about how much the John Oldman character himself was kind of a little bit off until, in 5BB kind of mentioned it, but yeah, there's I don't know. In some ways, I agree with some of the responses about his stoicism and all of that. But at the same time, it's like, how did they? You gotta remember. I mean, how did they even come together in the first place? That kind of uh, they supposedly knew him and kind of loved him and all that, and then all of a sudden he just turns it off. Uh, there's problems. I, I again, it's like it was a good try, which is another way to say it failed, but it had its few moments, but it kind of failed in a number of ways too. So I don't know. It, yeah. I'm just gonna leave it with that. KG5EZW.
KG5BZW, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And we're going to keep talking about characterization on the man from Earth and jump around to another random name out of the hat. And we go to KF5PDS, Billy and Sherman. What do you think of the characters?
Well, yeah, I thought they were, like other people said, it was an eclectic mix of perspectives, which you would want that if you were going to try to pick apart someone's story like this. And I think they all wanted to hear more because I think they were trying to learn something, get some kind of validation of their own levels of expertise. Like there was times when John Oldman, mentioned things and he was like, yeah, you would learn that from any textbook, and he's like, well, that's how I came to know it, and just kind of reconciled it with his memories. And then when he told Art, you got most of it right, inside he must have felt like some kind of satisfaction, like, yes, all the archaeology that he had done, without having anyone to, nothing to check against. Now he's got this wonderful resource, to check against. Do you think he would have been more, inquisitive, to try to find out more, to learn more about archaeology? Because now you have like a first-person source to ask. It's like that's like a dream come true for an archaeologist and anthropologist too. And the anthropologist, Dan, he to me seemed very genuine. He, out of all the characters in the whole film, Dan, the anthropologist, was the one that I felt the most connected to and the most, I felt the most for. And I didn't feel a whole bunch, but, for me, I just really loved his, he really was sitting down with John, like, if this is really true, what does this, mean for humanity? And he's trying to really get some honest answers and not just trying to gotcha him all the time. I think Brenda mentioned a lot of their questions were just gotchas, trying to catch him out and, find a flaw or problem with his story, to prove that he's lying or something. But the anthropologist, Dan, he really genuinely was trying to get some answers and put up the premise like, well, maybe you exist out of the flow of time. I thought that was kind of interesting. I wish there had been a physicist among the group to pick apart that aspect of it. I thought the biologist, Harry, he got a little too jokey all the time. I was kind of wishing they hadn't, it was kind of fun at first when he was joking around about different things, but then some of them just too much. I was just like, stop joking around so much. It's just, I don't mind keeping things lighthearted, but I just thought sometimes his character got a little too jokey. And the lady, the one who was the devout Christian, was she an art historian? They never really made it clear what her area of expertise was, but she was clearly there for the religious aspect. And I thought it was interesting they had a student, someone with fresh eyes to all the knowledge. Here we had seasoned professionals, tenured professors, and then you have a fresh, student who can give a fresh perspective that's not jaded in any way or you know, not sure what her level, you know, what her area of specialty was going to be. She obviously was taking archaeology and psychology because she mentioned she was in Gruber's class, his psych class, you know. So I thought it was cool that they included a student to get that kind of fresh-eyed perspective that wasn't, you know, pigeonholed in any one discipline yet, you know, still probably learning broad spectrum. So she could ask questions and it wouldn't seem, she could ask the kind of, she didn't really ask naive questions though. She didn't come across as naive. She came across and asked some very good questions, I thought, and no one poo-pooed her or thought, said, that's not a valid or appropriate or that's stupid, No, they all, allowed her to participate in the group like an equal. They were all, just there as intellectuals to learn. And I thought that was really cool. Provided a good balance, intellectual. You had the tenured professors and then you had the students. So I thought that was really neat. But I wish they had had a physicist in the group. John, he marginalizes himself, and he moves every 10 years. Think he's lived 140 centuries, and he moves every 10 years. That's 1,400 times he's moved around. He has very cold attachment because he doesn't allow himself to really attach anywhere. As soon as he starts digging in and getting invested in people, he picks up and moves away. Or people start getting invested in him, or they notice he doesn't age, and then he just disappears. So, I don't see how he could have any warmth if he just keeps detaching and marginalizing himself and moving on every time, somebody questions something about him. How can you have any warmth or about you if you just continually do that, have this kind of cold detachment to life. And maybe he is tired. Maybe that's why he finally divulged himself to his colleagues, is maybe he did want to kind of ditch that. That would be a terrible burden to have to bear for so long, for so many thousands of years. So overall, I found the characters very interesting. And the one thing I didn't like about Dan, though, at the end, when he was heading out and he saw the police car go by, I was like, and they just show him sitting in the car. It really bothered me that he didn't turn around and go back to the house, because as inquisitive as he had been about the whole situation, he just kind of let that one go by. I guess maybe he was still mulling things over and really wanted to break from the situation. The best line in the whole thing was when they were all kind of doubting their sanity. He said, John Oldman said, "You're not as crazy as you think I am." I thought that was a great line. That was my favorite line in the whole film. All right, that's all I'm going to say, so I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS, back to now.
KF5 PDS, this is K5 A&E Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net. Thanks for that really detailed analysis on the characters. Let's continue on here and continue talking characterization on the movie. And take another random name out of the hat here. Let's go to NG5Y. What do you think of the characters?
I liked that they had characters from different points of view. The psychiatrist, I really did not care for that particular character, but the other ones who asked the protagonist the questions I thought were pretty good. I'm not quite sure I would have had any more original questions of my own that I would have asked. But, like I said, I liked the movie, and back to that is G5Y.
NG5Y, this is K5 A&E Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net, and we'll continue talking characterization here and jump to another random person on the list here. Let's go to November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony, what do you think of the characters?
I really enjoyed hearing other people talk about this movie more than I enjoyed trying to watch it, and the characters are no exception. You have got me thinking about them more, so that's kind of neat. And I think if they were talking about something else other than this protagonist, I might have really enjoyed listening in on their dinner party. They were an interesting group of people, I think, potentially. And I do understand the justifications people have offered for why the protagonist was so flat and boring, but nevertheless, that was a problem for me trying to watch the movie. Because his character did not interest me at all, I found myself unable to really take an interest in the movie. When Erin happened to watch it, she also pointed out that his character uniquely really often seemed to speak with the I'm an actor voice. See, look, I'm saying my lines. It was also something that his character seemed to be a bit divided over in the bit I saw, and apparently from what others have said that continued. It was a little six of one, half a dozen of the other. Was he this guy who was at the elbow of every famous person in history, hanging out with Van Gogh and the Buddha? Or was he trying to keep his head down and not attract attention and get tried as a witch or what have you? I don't know, I kind of thought they put him a little bit too close to the center of the action, or at least the center of celebrity there. So yeah, I wish his character somehow had been more interesting. I think I would have gotten a lot more out of the movie that way. I wish I had just been more engaged with it, because darn it, it sure sounds like other people had more fun. At any rate, I've had a lot of fun on the net, but I do have to go. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been great listening to you. NT5TM.
NT5TM, have a great evening. This is K5ANE, Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net, and we'll continue talking about the Man from Earth here. And jump on over to KB9SOK. John, what do you think of the characters?
KB9SOK. Well, this movie obviously was very much about the characters. The main character, John, I actually thought it was played rather well. I think it was pretty much dead on to what I would think that somebody that had lived all them years would have been like. He would have had to been cold, because as he mentioned in the movie, that's partly why the way he is, because of, he lives past everybody, and getting attached to them would be constant heartbreak, and he mentions this, I think, more than once. So he's got to kind of be that way. And he's not going to get too excited by their comments and stuff, because, well, quite honestly, he's lived through just about everything. So why would he get excited about anything in particular? And he's been everywhere. So I can see why he'd be very just mellow, and not a whole lot would probably shake him, because he's pretty much been through these scenarios so many times that there's probably not a whole lot that would rattle him at this point in time. I thought it was actually, he played it pretty spot on. Most of the characters, the others, the different professors, I thought were pretty decent. I do think that the religious lady was a little over the top, as I mentioned. If I remember this correctly, but I thought that's what she taught was religion. So I would have thought she would have been a little more open-minded about other possible religions, So that was, I thought that was a little much, but I realized they wanted to make that a major point. But still, it seemed like it was a little much. And then the professor with the young girlfriend, I thought his character was a bit much, too. He seemed like he overreacted very quickly, very early on, not really getting much of the story before he'd already decided this was just bull. It was going to go get help. So there's really the only two characters that had issues with those two, but overall, I thought the characterizations were played quite well, because obviously that's what was the focus of this movie. That's really all I have. Back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
KB9SOK, this is K5ANE, Net Control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And there's a part of me that feels that the guy that was on the motorcycle and whatnot with the younger student with him, there's a part that makes me feel that he's overly exploding and getting overly emotional about this, and just really flying off the handle here. There's a part of me that thinks that, but at the same time, you think about a lot of people, and whenever they encounter something that is this thing that completely challenges everything that they they think they know, especially a topic that, is really close to this guy. He's a, archaeologist kind of person. A lot of times people will get pretty upset. So, I've definitely experienced people like him in the past where it's like, you tell them something that you know is true, and, they tend to freak out. And it's like, wait, but this is how it is. But anyways, continuing on, KI5JCM, Thomas, anything about characters? KI5JCM, still out there? Any other comments you'd like to share? Alrighty, any other check-ins for the net? If you'd like to talk about the movie, feel free to come on in with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and if you saw the movie. Alright, nothing heard. I guess we'll do one more round here. We'll just start at the top and work our way down. N5BB, any closing notes?
Oh boy, this is N5BB. Well, I had a really interesting time, like Tony said, listening to everybody else. And Tom, thank you for coming in with kind of that rejoinder to my comments. And I guess you're right. He was really, really old. And maybe because of that would have that different attitude. The trouble is, it's very hard for us to guess how somebody would react when they're that old and experience that many things. It's just not. I don't think it's possible for us to really consider what would really go on in somebody's head. Would they still be sane? That's always been the question about what if you could do if you could extend lifespans to be hundreds of years. Would people really be sane in what we think of as sanity if they were really that old? It's hard to know. But I'm glad I saw the movie. I think it was interesting to look at. And I think, like Brenda, I might wait to like Billy, I might wait for the future and see it again after another year or two. It might be interesting to look at. I would like to know if anybody has seen the follow-up movie and whether we should schedule it or not. That topic came up earlier with somebody, but I'm just kind of interested to know. If the follow-up movie is interesting, I'd be, wanting to look at it. Obviously, this movie ended in a way which a follow-up movie could very easily be blended into it. That's all I got, I guess. But by the way, the follow-up movie has Michael Dorn in it, as well as William Catt, who is in this movie, is in the new one, and Vanessa Williams, the model and actress, is in it. So the follow-up movie has three interesting, well-known people in it. So that's why I'm interested in asking about the follow-up. N5BB, thank you.
N5BB, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And we'll continue on. Final comment, KG5BZW.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, I could go off on a little tangent. I don't really think I've got enough time for it, though. Yeah, someone that's been around for even 1,000 years, I kind of well, it's not just if they were sane. It's like if there's I'll go ahead and say what I'm going to say. There's a quote from Wittgenstein that he famously said, "If a lion could speak, we could not understand him." Well, I don't know if we could understand a 1,000-year-old person. Even if it's not so much, that the words that come out of his mouth would be, we could probably recognize the whole, if he could speak, English is coming out of his mouth. It's that further deeper aspect, but I don't know how much it's really, we're kind of pretending that we can understand him in this movie, so that's just a weird kind of offhand remark, honestly. I don't really have anything else to say. That if lion could speak, we could not understand it. That's something to talk about on its own thing. But I only have a couple of seconds left, so I'm going to just leave it at that. KG5BTW.
5BZW, this is K5ANE, net control for the Afterglow Movie Net. And we'll continue on, KE5ICX, closing thoughts.
Team, thank you for doing the net. I really don't have any additional comments. I like what Bill said in his comments about thought, which kind of reflected back on what I also said, but he took it another level. I'll leave it at that. Others can speak. KE5I6.
Elvis has left the building.
KE5ACX, thanks for that. K5ANE, next net, and we'll continue on. Final thoughts. Let's keep in mind that the regular timeout timer is now back in effect. KI5JCM, one more try. KI5JCM, any other closing thoughts? Alrighty, continuing on, KF5PDS, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I just wanted to let N5BB Bill know that I have watched the sequel one time, so I think it would be interesting to book it. It would, I think, certainly garner some more interesting conversation and discussion for the movie net if we wanted to do it. So, give it a watch and, see what you think. I think it would be a good one to discuss on the movie net. So just my 2 cents. This is KF5PDS. Can't wait to hear what we're going to do. I would recommend that we do the sequel for next week just to keep it together. This is KF5PDS. Back to next.
KF5PDS, thanks for that. Continuing on, KG5PMN, James, closing thoughts.
This is KG5PMN. I don't have much on way of closing thoughts. Just had one thought. This had to be one of the lowest budget movies I think we've ever watched. I couldn't imagine how much of a budget this would have actually taken to produce with those little set areas that they had. Back to that, KPMN.
KG5PMN, thanks for that. This is K5ANE, next control for the Afterglow Movie Net. We're doing closing thoughts. Continuing on, NG5Y, Alan, closing thoughts.
We outlive our pets. We mourn their death, and we go through them, and we have more pets. I'm a big Doctor Who fan,
And I can only imagine what it would be like to outlive multiple people. We all mourn the death of our parents, but can you imagine living so long that you outlive everyone else you've ever known? I'm sure it would be a really big part of your personality. So I really like the movie, and that's my parting thoughts on the movie, NG5Y.
NG5Y, thanks for joining us. Continuing on, WB5OZL, closing thoughts.
This is WB5OZL. Yeah, the idea of outliving everybody is pretty depressing. I met a lady at a funeral once, a very elderly woman, and everybody she had was gone. She had no kids, and all of her siblings and all of their spouses, and she's at the funeral of the last one of that generation. So she was the end of the generation, and no kids below her. She really felt alone. I was always struck with a lot of sadness for that. I think there's kind of a inconsistency. This guy studied with the Buddha and learned and was very committed, and then he drifted back across the world and began to teach as Jesus. So I would think he would have a lot of charisma, and that he would be a religious man. Instead, he seemed like a totally ordinary person, and living his life, and not a whole lot of higher purpose, or I would think he would have some kind of like an aura or something, that he would be different. So that's the main thing why I have a bit of a problem with his persona. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
WB5OZL, thanks for joining us. Continuing on, KB9SOK, closing thoughts.
Don't really have a whole lot to add. Other than, I did enjoy the movie, and most likely I probably will watch the sequel. Just as a little side note, and I'm sure most of you probably know this, just like this movie, if you happen to be an Amazon Prime member, you can watch a lot of these movies for free, and don't have to deal with the commercials. So just if you haven't had to be a member, you might check it out, because I know some of the links sometimes have commercials, especially the YouTube ones. So it's been kind of handy to use the Prime to not have to watch that. Anyway, that's all I got. Back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. This is K5AME Net Control for the Absolute Movie Net. We meet here on this repeater, W5SC, every week at about 10:30, where we talk movies, oftentimes sci-fi movies. And let's jump on over to KE5ICX and figure out what we're going to be watching next week.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, everybody, for thank you for doing the net. Thanks everybody for your comments. I was looking. I'm kind of frantically figuring out. Fifth Passenger is off the books, which was the scheduled movie. I think what we can do is, if you want to, we will watch The Man from Earth, the sequel. Here I see it on Vudu. I've made a note, if it's available on Prime or something like that, rather than commercials, I will add that as a second alternate connection for those of you with Prime or any of your other services. I've always done, let me reset. I've always tried to do something that was, free, but we all have various services now since the beginning of this net, 7 years ago, something like that. A lot of things have changed, and movies are available freely available on our various platforms. So I will list as many platforms as I can find in the links. So next week will be The Man from Earth, the sequel. Encene, I'm not sure what its pronunciation is, and I don't have it up on the screen right now, will be next week. And we'll do that. If you want to be a part of the YouTube page, you can go to Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow and Movie. You can sign up there. You get in automatically. If you're not interested in that, you can send me an email at Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray, KE5ICX@yahoo.com, KE5ICX@yahoo.com, and I'll put you on the list. Just say you want to be added to the Afterglow Movie. That's it from me, KE5ICX.